welcome to Legal Interact's webinar, right? So we'll be talking about the art of the possible, how we use AI to enable legal service delivery. So my introduction, my name is Klingon Teta. I'm a lawyer, a legal contract analyst at Legal Interact. So my role is primarily to validate the outputs of AI. And I'd like my fellow panelists to introduce themselves as well.
Thanks, Lee. My name is Tanda Ewing. I'm a machine learning engineer at Legal Interact, and I'm the head of the AI lab. We're doing all the cool things around AI and sort of enabling our products with AI in any way that we can.
Great, and good afternoon. My name is Rafael Siegel. I am the co-founder for Contract Corridor and my AI lawyer, and I'm a director of Legal Interact. I'm really thrilled to be joining Shlengi and Tawanda in the discussion around the art of the possible. We think that we're at a real interesting intersection of legal, AI, and business, and we are excited to chat about how we're enabling legal service delivery using AI. So a little bit about Legal Interact, and just to go back in time. Legal Interact started about 40 years ago. We initially started focusing on accounting solutions for law firms. Over time, we built practice management with accounting solutions. Then we added on hard collections and soft collections. About 5 years ago, we started to build out a contract lifecycle management solution called Contract Corridor. And in that journey, it was all about AI. So managing contracts, all about AI. And through that process, we started to think about, well, if we could enable law firms with practice management solutions, and then we could enable in-house counsel with Contract Corridor, what could we do for the man in the street? And we started to build my AI lawyer. So it's really going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to look at the three areas: law firms, in-house legal teams, and the South African public in terms of how AI can enable them. Legal Interact is 100 people big. We're a multidisciplinary team. We have tried to weave AI into everything we do. And I think most excitingly for us, we have just been given a Microsoft Global Partner of the Year award for our work that we've done in AI as an inclusion change maker. So kicking off and really excited for this, and over to you, Shlengs.
All right, just a bit of housekeeping. We will be taking some questions towards the end of the webinar. So if you would think of some questions and then pop them later into the question and answer chat, we would appreciate it so much. Just to introduce the webinar, we'll just be speaking about Gen AI and its applicability in legal service delivery. And then we'll delve into some practical use cases. Then we'll be speaking about AI for good and how Legal Interact uses AI for good. And then obviously the question and answer session at the end. Right, so to kick things off, right, so legal services are the cornerstone of our society. And from the lawyers in law firms, traditional law firms, to your in-house counsels, as well as to men on the street. So tell us maybe to wonder how Gen AI enables legal service delivery.
Definitely. I think to really see the impact that Gen AI has in sort of enabling legal service delivery, we have to take it back to the start and sort of understand that AI as an idea has been around for a long time. It's been around since the 1940s, post-World War II, the idea around the perceptron, which was sort of imitating how the neurons fire in our brain. And the whole idea was, how can we make machines learn and understand information the way humans do? And at that time, the idea didn't really gain a lot of momentum, and it was primarily because we didn't have enough compute power or data to actually feed into these models to be able to be useful. Fast forward to today, that's not a problem anymore, right? We have vast amounts of data, vast amounts of compute through the cloud like Microsoft Azure. And what we're seeing is that with this data, when you train it around generative models, such as these large language models, you end up getting a lot of useful practical use cases, and particularly around legal service delivery, where then able to sort of ingest this available or this large amounts of available legal data and make it useful in ways that were previously not possible. And that's around being able to draft contracts, being able to review these legal documents at a much more faster rate than you could before as a human being. You can sort of imagine that if you're a person and you read one or two documents, you will be pretty good at reviewing and getting all the information out of it. The moment you start dealing with hundreds or thousands of documents, that task becomes a lot more complicated. And that's where something like an AI assistant powered by Gen AI would actually, help accelerate these tasks and, result in more effective legal service delivery. And then there's also this idea around being able to search intelligently. Again, we have the vast amount of legal data available throughout the world. And with AI, we're then able to more effectively use this data because we can search through it, get the things that we need. And again, same example, if you're reading through one or two documents, that's fine. But once you're searching across hundreds or thousands of documents, the task becomes a lot more complicated, and AI can really help.
What I'm hearing is that the legal industry is the perfect foundation for Gen AI, right? Because the pressure is immense. We've got pleadings to draft, contracts to draft, documents to draft, legislation to read, right? So Gen AI is definitely the perfect example of how to go about doing that, right?
100%, definitely.
And just to talk us through, there's this image that you've got here, the metaphor of the contract on the screen, numbered 1 to 8. Just tell us, you're telling us that in terms of how you're looking at it and the ability to extract it, the ability to review it, the ability to find it, that's just unpack a little bit for us.
Sure thing. And I mean, contracts are a perfect example because as much as contracts are unstructured data, there are patterns and sort of rules around how to draft a contract and what makes a contract a contract. And because of this sort of rules around what makes a contract a contract, AI is very adept at learning these patterns and understanding the context, the contents of these contracts. So that then enables us to use Gen AI, particularly large language models, to be able to extract the pertinent information from the contract. You can think of the fields around certain parts of the contract, the specific clauses within the contract, and then to also understand how these sort of clauses connect to each other and the information that relates to them. And that enables you to then, once, surface all the important information. So even if you are not a legal professional like you, you're still able to understand your contracts and get the most out of it. And then you're also able to action tasks around it without having to read the entire contract. AI is working to sort of surface these things, and then you can build tasks around them to sort of automate certain steps and again accelerate how you do legal service delivery.
Brilliant. Thanks.
All right, so let's delve into the practical use cases. I think Raphael could go through some practical use cases on AI and enabling legal service delivery.
So one of the challenges we have is that we see AI in everything we do, and I think it's always hard for us to say no to doing anything. And I think we've at Legal Interact we've tried to create a framework that says, when we talk about AI, the kind of work we want to do, it either has to fit into one of four areas. It has to enable productivity, so it has to be a productivity enhancer. It has to be materially valuable in that way, or it has to enable the customer experience. So whatever we're going to do has to make the customer experience materially better. So we think about it in that way. I think the third thing we want to try and do is we want to try manage content or generate content in a specific way that empowers the user or empowers the person who's using it to experience the solution in a certain way. I think the final piece is it's the golden thread. It's what we're all looking for as business owners. How do we generate revenue, or how do we make money from this? And if we can't make money, how do we stop the leakage? So we always looking at it from that perspective, and we are pushing. I am pushing this team on my right and the rest of the team really hard to make sure that we get it into the right sections. So I think in the sections that we're going to go through now, it's going to be when we're looking at it. I'm going to be asking you, well, tell us a little bit about is this about automation, extraction of fields, or if we're talking about content management? Well, are we talking about risks, or we're talking about customer experience, or what are we going to enable? Is it questions and answers? And we'll leave the golden thread to the last, because I think that becomes something we can have a whole conversation about. Just in terms of the circle, giving our product a plug, it was just contract corridor, looking at the pre-signature on the right hand side, numbered 1 to 6, and then post-signature or contract manager on the other side from 6 to 9, and you can see it is completely infused with AI, all running on Microsoft Azure. So we're really excited about what we've been able to achieve. What we're going to show you now is not theoretical. It is real. It is out there. It's in Microsoft Marketplace. So let's kick it off. Over to you guys.
All right. So what I like about the life cycle, contract life cycle, right, is it starts with the lawyer and it gets into the hands of the end user, right? The end user being the people that are actually fulfilling the obligations drafted by the lawyers themselves. So if we have a look at contract extraction, can you tell us a bit more about contract extraction?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, building off what we're talking about with Gen AI around its ability to really understand this unstructured data and sort of bring structure out of it. I think contract extraction is a very practical example of how it's being used. And what we're seeing here is an actual image from our platform contract manager and how it actually works around extracting clauses specifically. So the same applies to the specific fields that you might want to extract out of your contract. It's this thing of this is a 40 odd page contract. If you have some legal knowledge, you can read through it and identify all the relevant clauses and sort of take note of them. But the system does it for you. You just load your contract, you get all the clauses, they're clearly highlighted, and you're aware that this is, in this case, it's a dispute resolution clause. And you're then able to get the key insights from this clause. So, as a layman who's not necessarily a lawyer, you just want to understand what's my risk, what am I being exposed to in terms of dispute resolution, and maybe what are the steps around the dispute resolution process that's been laid out in this contract. And that's all sort of being done for you as best as it can. And then you're now in a sense of awareness. You know exactly what needs to be done, and you can action tasks against this in a very practical way, thereby again increasing the efficiency of how you actually utilize this contract and get the most out of it.
I love how you mentioned the key insights, right? So all clauses and provisions in the contract have the foundations behind them, right? So what makes up a dispute resolution clause? That will be your notice, your notices, your time frame. So that's what is being extracted here, right?
100%. And I think this is an excellent example of how AI on its own may not always get it right, but with the combination of human and AI around understanding what are the key insights we want to extract. So that was actually developed by lawyers within Legal Interact, and then we're then able to pass it on to the AI to then effectively surface these key insights for the person who's using the system to be able to take advantage of that. So a cool combination between how we're augmenting how people work using AI and thereby again accelerating how things are done.
And so when we think about this is disputes. But let's talk about breaches or surety. Are you guys saying that we've got insights around all of that? We augment not just the actual clause extraction, but we augment the insight, which is a framework or a dictionary that looks at that data and will give you the insight per that clause structure.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've taken your generic clauses that will come out in a contract. For example, in a lease agreement, we know there will be a cession and assignment clause, and we've taken that and we've broken down to key insights. Is the landlord or is the lessee allowed to sublet, for example? So then we've broken down into a much simpler language and we've surfaced the answer directly from using AI, right?
And so consequently, if you've got a standard, and we think about disputes, you say in my business, I have a standard to deal with disputes. You've got this global standard to deal with disputes across all your buy-side contracts. You can then get this insight out of all your existing contracts and compare that against your standard and highlight and actually go and zone in or zoom in to those contracts. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, definitely. So I think it also enhances productivity, right? So if you take a look at a contract that's already been signed, parties are happy with it, and then you get a new contract from a third party, and you're looking to review it. The system also will take you through the semantic differences between the two clauses, right? So it's going to give you the red flags, and it's going to jump at you and say, look, this is how different this clause is from a previously drafted and approved clause. Yeah.
I think I heard a lawyer just use the word semantic. So maybe let's just define what semantic means.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, semantic is this idea around when you say something, there's a meaning behind it. So regardless of the actual words that have been used, you're trying to transfer a certain meaning from that. And this gives us the capability to actually match up, like for this example, between different clauses, or is the meaning of what you're trying to do the same as you drop different clauses across your contracts? And I think this is a very great example because if I make you read a clause or two, you might be able to see the differences in meaning. But the moment you're dealing with hundreds of contracts, can you really maintain that context in your brain? This is where Gen AI is able to help and sort of, you don't have to worry about that. You know that if I have filled with all my contracts, it's then able to look across all hundred thousands, whatever they are, and be able to flag the ones that are sort of deviating from the semantic meaning that you want across all your contracts to keep that consistency. And I guess avoid exposing so certain risks just because one contract is drafted slightly differently from another.
I think a perfect example of that would be a session and assignment, right? A session and assignment clause in a lease agreement would be different from a session and assignment clause in a credit agreement, for example. But the AI is able to sort of see the differences and sort of extract the correct information.
100%. Yeah.
And what's also really great is that, we think that this is so black box and not explainable, not, that it's not there, but it really is explainable. So it's transparent and you can see what's happening. And the truth is, when it does get it wrong, and it can get it wrong, and we've got some stats we could probably share, but when we fix it, then it's fixed. It's actually like that's fixed forever. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have to never look at it again. But it is fixed. And so if you want to extract a particular clause or you want to extract a particular insight, once you've added it in, it's part of the base of the IP that you're dealing with. And I find that really, really valuable.
Definitely. I mean, it just helps simplify the process. You're really taking advantage of your data, and that's what the core of AI is. Learn from your data and make it useful, make your data work for you instead of having to try and maintain all these rules in different systems or whatever that may be.
So when we talk about the art of the possible for us, it's like, well, there's a 41-page contract someone had to review. Things you could tell us how long it takes. But the bet has been on for 5,000 contracts in 24 hours. And the art of the possible is, well, we've got about, if I take some of the lease agreements, I think we've got 140 agreements with anything from 50 field types to 80 field types and clauses and provisions. Get that done where you're seeing your data points. And so like we're there, right? We can ingest all that data. It'll take us a day or two, and we'll be able to show you that data in your dashboard.
Definitely. So I'd imagine that as a lawyer, you probably get 5 or 6, really just a guess, how many clients give you contracts and like, I need this reviewed by the end of business today. I think that process will definitely speed up automation and productivity as well. So then if I'm able to give answers to that many clients in a day, definitely a win for the lawyers, right?
And there's the idea of storing, so not just managing contracts that are coming in, but because we have this ability to ingest contracts at scale, all your contracts that are sitting in cabinets or in file share or somewhere, you can just bring them all together in one place, process them, and you're sort of in one picture. You can see what risk you're exposed to, and what actions you need to take to actually get things in order.
And I think what excites us about this is not only the enablement of everyone through this process that's working in an organization, not just lawyers have to review contracts, but actually contracts that are signed that need to actually perform. Because once you've got these data points, what's really exciting is what's been layered on top of it. The reminders to actually, perform as per the contract requires you to do. Or that's to submit reports, or that's to manage those obligations. That's really what this is about. And so I think when you come back to that, the art of the possible is not sitting in someone's cabinet, it's sitting in a repository that is an active kind of interaction between people that really have partnered in good faith to do something. And so this is an enabler from that perspective. It really should make it, to get South Africa to work, to get South Africa to collectively collaborate. We think this is something that actually does do that.
AI for good, right?
AI for good. There you go. Brilliant. So productivity tech. We think we're in that. Let's talk about the next one. I mean, we hit semantics. Let's talk about, just talking about risk review, and in terms of contract review, the ability to actually take a contract, think about bringing that contract in. We were extracting clauses out of the contract in the previous example. Now we're talking about being able to build a risk framework, talk about, financial risk, operational, reputational risk. We're looking at a force majeure in a contract versus some playbook text. Talk us through how we're doing that analysis, that semantic differential, and how we can zone in and talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kick it off with the technical side of just, building on the previous step of, first of all, we've identified and extracted the clause accurately here, which is the force majeure in this case. And in this case, the client has a set playbook around what their force majeure clause should look like. So again, example, you have one or two contracts, you know your playbook, you can read that one contract and be like, yeah, this looks kind of different, or this isn't aligned with what we need. The moment you start dealing with hundreds or thousands of these contracts, then it becomes a bit more tricky, right? But that's where the system will help. It's going to go through every contract, it's going to identify all the force majeure clauses, and then it's going to compare them to the playbook force majeure clause and semantically check the similarity. And that's what you see here. It's just letting you know that, okay, your force majeure clause is 95% similar to the one that you have in this contract. Just letting you know, and then you decide, okay, is 95% problematic? Maybe I read into it more closely, but you won't have to worry about the ones that have 100% similarity, for example. So you just surface the ones that have differences, just so you can review them, make sure everything's okay. So AI isn't going to necessarily do that for you, but again, it's augmenting how you work. You're not worrying about finding all these potential risks in your clauses. AI is surfacing them for you, and you're able to then action the next step appropriately with the right information in front of you.
I see what you mean, right? So my now worry is legislation changes all the time, right? And you think you spoke to us about intelligent searches. So my worry is I've seen 95%, and this is what I'd like to embed in my contract. But what if there's been changes in legislation since then? I think Raf can take us through maybe the legal chatbot that's embedded in the program.
So, I mean, we continuously, and that's what's interesting, we're continuously curating content into the back end of the solution. And we're trying to actually create some alignment between the contract analytics and the legislation or newly curated details. Create some alignment there. So that in itself is interesting, because there's some obligations that one needs to align with, whether that's a mining or labor related obligation. We could probably tell you, well, you know, this is the actual obligation that's embedded there. One thing I just want to circle back to the framework is, does it mean that your risk framework, if it's force majeure, is global for all your contracts, or can we say all lease agreements have this kind of risk structure, but you know, by side of consumer goods, we want to have something different? And how do we structure the risk framework? And is it ever too much for the system to handle?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is that no, it's not too much. You can customize it to be very specific to each type of contract that you have. The system does have an understanding of the different types of contracts that you can upload and that you want to manage. And if you don't want, let's say, certain clauses, they are common across all your contracts. You can set that up as well, so that it checks against all your contracts, not just specific contract types. So it's flexible. You can customize it to make it work the way you work, and the way you work to be more effective and efficient, just by using AI in this case.
And so what I love about this example is we're talking about content management. And so essentially we've set up a risk framework. We've tied a risk framework to this framework agreement or SLA agreement. We've actually run the contract from a contract review perspective. You've done all that smart stuff we did in step one. You've chopped the contract up, got some of the parts out. And now we've used the semantic analytics to compare the risk framework force majeure clause against the contract's force majeure clause. Nutshell, that's what we've done, right?
Exactly.
So we wrap it all up and we bring it together. And essentially what we're saying is, like, whoever's got to do this review process, we can deliver them a risk review bundle, which is, if I go back, you're saying to me, we could give them the term sheet, which was the listing of all their fields. We've got this risk review framework, we could give them that. I see sitting behind there, we've got the summarization. We won't really get into that, but there's a summary of this process. So we could kind of give them everything and this 40-page contract that they do want to look at.
So it's just a way of, again, surfacing what's important. Like we don't want to waste human time on mundane tasks that can be, accelerated using AI. You focus on the most important things. Use your human intelligence for the really high level, I should say high value work around identifying these risks once they can surface for you, and actually make sure you do the right thing to mitigate any risk or any differences that you might see.
And so we really are talking about Copilot. We really are talking about the empowerment of the human lawyer to actually be much more effective, because there's a whole bunch of work that AI will enable. We've now spoken about two things: extraction and content management.
Enabling self-service, right? Grant, can you take us through that, please?
Yeah, so I mean one of the key things that I'm always saying is well, when we're digitalizing this information, it's fantastic, but I think what we want to try and do is enable as much of the business to self-serve. And so look at look at contracts, as we look at data policies, any kind of document that comes in, we should be able to ask questions. And if we're doing the work that this ingestion process, extraction process, conversion process, we should be able to ask questions, and the question should be intelligently translated to an answer that we want. It doesn't actually have to be even of legal nature. But in this case, I think we seem to have been asking a question about helping us ring fence a penalty that we were going to have again on some clause here. What it's doing is it's going against some policy documents that we've got in the back that we've ingested. It's using that to work out how we could cap the penalty structure. It's coming up with some proposing of what that could look like. So it's supporting us in the drafting of a clause. And so that seems to be what we're getting out here. But I think we're going to talk about parts, but I think this is an example not just of the question and answer on a single contract around from a drafting perspective, but you could extrapolate it out. So maybe unpack it for us. Like what are the kinds of things we could be asking?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I also just want to touch on the technical side in the sense of with Gen AI, there's this element that's come in of being able to converse and just have this conversational interaction with models. I mean, previously, before Gen AI, it was possible to extract information. You would use entity extraction to get that information out. You use span categorization to get clauses out, you name it. But we just didn't have this element of being able to then converse with your data. So once you have this data and it's structured, now we have the capabilities to actually have a very natural language conversation with your information and get what you need out of it. Very powerful when you're looking at the fact that most people that use these systems may not be legal professionals that have also this information at hand, and is then giving them the ability to sort of question their documents, get the most relevant piece of information out of it in a way that they can understand, and they can follow up on questions and sort of get a more refined answer over time. So I really think that's something to take note of, and something that's very powerful about it, particularly Gen AI and how it's sort of enabling legal services.
I like how you mentioned that it's no longer in the hands of the lawyers, right? So once the contract is drafted, the lawyers just hand it over to the relevant departments going to be dealing with the workflows and obligations that emanate from the contract itself. So maybe if you can tell me about the language in the conversations, or do I need to be speaking like a lawyer, or in my layman language, that will AI be able to understand what I'm trying to get from the contract?
You don't even have to type particularly good English, even spelling errors. The model is pretty good at understanding what you're trying to get out of. And again, if you ask a question, doesn't really give you the answer that you're looking for, you can follow up and sort of clear up your thoughts and make it clear that, okay, this is what I'm actually looking for. And in most cases, with the right, steps that we discussed previously, with the right extraction, the information is there, you will get to an answer that is useful and clear for anyone to understand.
Fantastic, right? We all know that comes in handy with the spelling errors.
Yeah.
And so when we think about it, we can ask a question at a single contract level. We could therefore ask a question across all contracts. We could ask a question around contacts. So the thing I'm thinking about is, give me a list of all contacts that are FICA enabled. Contracts, give me a list of all contracts that are partly signed. Give me a list of all organizations that we've worked with for the last 6 months. These are questions that AI can understand and do something with them.
100%. And I think I'll keep hammering this point home with being like, if you have 1 or 2 contracts, the human capabilities are well within reach being able to answer those questions, and you get your 1 or 2 contracts or 1 or 2 documents and bring it together. The moment you start dealing with hundreds, thousands of documents, you sort of need AI, and I'll be that's a very important part to be able to be effective in what you're doing, because you don't want to spend time looking across thousands of contracts to get the information that you need, because you just want the information, then you want to do something with it. So let the AI get the information, and then let you take that information and do something.
So if I wanted to know, give me a list of all contracts that have early payment discounts. Would that be a doable thing?
That would definitely be doable.
And aren't you going to give me a list of all contracts that are expiring in the next 3 months?
Yep, you can get it. And then what's powerful is that you then have to go do
Drop
what
the
you have to
mic,
do.
drop the mic, T.
Right? Then you go and do what you need to do afterwards. You stop worrying about having to collect all this information. The information is there, it's at your fingertips. Use it to do the most important things, which is the next step that comes after you've gathered it.
I don't have any more questions.
No, tell me about time though. If I'm looking for all the contracts that need turnable certificates, right? How long is it going to take for AI to get that information to me?
It's going to be a matter of seconds.
So I don't need to go get a
there.
coffee or anything like
No,
that.
100%, because we've done all the heavy lifting beforehand. We've already extracted all the information. So that's where how you see it all come together, is with those previous steps of first going through the process, gathering all the information, storing it from unstructured to structured, or then able to then just use this conversational element on top. So you're not like fighting with drop downs and SQL queries to get your information. You're actually just telling the system that I need this, and it's using its knowledge based on everything that's been extracted, sort of bring it together for you in a usable format so that you can carry on with your day.
Fantastic.
And just to help us understand, I know I asked you like, what's the capacity, but over the last year and a half, we've really been driving hard at getting the processing right, like optimizing processing. Got lots of contracts, thousands of contracts. Genuinely, what are we seeing as the timing to get this ready for what you're describing, the heavy lifting? Like, what needs to be done so that we can let people like Slings ask those questions and people like me or ask my questions and we can
get the business going.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the way we built our system was obviously on the cloud, running on Microsoft Azure. So we have access to pretty much the computing scale of Microsoft. So for anyone out there who's wondering, like, how far can this go? I think it can go as far as you need it to go. It can scale up to the point where you're processing contracts. I mean, you can see practical stats. Currently, we're processing contracts like 32 seconds per contract. So you can totally imagine how, if you have thousands of contracts, you're then able to really make most of your previous data again and data going forward. And I think usually the bulk of the data that's sitting in the cloud is where a lot of value is being lost. And then once your system is online, you can then keep on bringing in more information. But the idea is that it's in the cloud, everything scales up to your need, and you were then able to process that information, store it in a way that's usable, and then you can build on top of that all your tasks and processes that come in.
And I think that something you've said is really important. And I think if we go back a year and a half ago, it was taking us about 9 minutes to process a contract. And we didn't have as much data as we have today. And the quantum improvement, I think we'll go back to the art of the possible. It's like you just said 32 seconds. We know where we want to be yet, right? There were 9 minutes in the last 18 months to 32 seconds. I know it's not good enough. I know it's not where we want to be, but we're going to be at the number.
Yeah.
But I mean, but that's incredible. I mean, and that's what the technology is allowing us to do. So I know that there's a lot of anxiety around AI. We'll talk about some of the fair and good AI, but we're at like this quantum improvement. You would have said 9 minutes, we have 4.5 minutes. It's not that. It's in seconds now. So and you're saying to us that makes no difference. We take 5,000 contracts, 10,000 contracts, with this scale. We'll just load it up and we'll bring it in.
Exactly. It's capable of scaling and being able to handle this. And you upload, you walk away. In this case, you go grab your coffee, and then you come back maybe in a day, and then everything is in there and it's ready to be used. And
there's a dashboard, and you see it.
Exactly. Then the real power really comes in, right? Because the data process is there, and you're then able to then ask all these questions, action all these tasks, and really get the most out of the data.
I mean, we really are moving into a new paradigm. I mean, just when you do think about what is it going to look like? That you can bring this data in, and it's 9 minutes now, it's 32 seconds, with much more information. Only the data points, your clauses, your insights, and it's all just like, they're all just little dictionaries that you pull out and say, I'd love to add some more to my insights, or hold on, I want to add some more stuff to my risk framework, and you pop some more stuff in. You kind of just have much more value, and it's easier, and you're enabling the human lawyer. This cognitive load that we're going to take off people, I think it's really going to be valuable. All right.
My AI lawyer. Exciting times that we're in, right? A lawyer at the tip of your fingertips, right? So tell us maybe a bit about what my AI lawyer is and what it does.
So I think one of the great things about the AI journey is that you have this opportunity of discovery. we started, we've been doing contract code for the last 5 years, and it is as if my AI lawyer was born in a day. It really wasn't. It was born in all the work done by everyone who was doing work in contract lifecycle management. And I think in terms of all the learnings in how AI works, the RNNs, the CNNs, all those networks, and then eventually coming to the large language models, the ability to curate legislation, bring that legislation in, and then actually building on the block of being able to ask a question of a contract or a question of a policy, enabled us to think about, creating a structure where we could ask questions of legislation and regulation. Going out to various customers, NGOs, partners, and showcasing it to them, we got lots and lots of thumbs up, lots of eyes light up moments, as I like to say. And that inspired us to really build my AI lawyer out. My AI lawyer really is a front end to the human lawyer. It's the essence of what I call co-pilot, human in the loop, because it is an enablement through WhatsApp where any man in the street can ask a question of the platform. They ask a question around anything from consumer legislation to banking to privacy to you can name it all. But you can ask any kind of question, you get a great answer. It's contextually aware. You can have multiple questions to the same conversation. And when you're finished, it will ask you, do you want an email of the conversation? What's fascinating about how we've done it is you will, when we start the conversation, the one thing that we've learned, we're talking about really the difference at this point in time is we've now transitioned out of dealing with a law firm and or a in-house legal corporate team. We're now talking about the industry. And so we've really made it, the very first thing is we wanted to build a essence of compassion, an essence of companionship. When you talk about AI, you think, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would that be? How would you do that? So maybe you want to talk about, like, how do we layer that in? Like, that's the first thing we do is we want to give you a sense that we're your partner in this process. So maybe just talk about how we can ground AI and make it feel like that.
Yeah. I think from a technical perspective, the grounding of AI and like the graph is saying very important for the experience, because it's one thing to just get the information that you need, it's another thing to get the information that you need delivered to you in a human way, right? And we're then able to do that, to get human in the loop, involving the sort of human element by curating the data so that it's then presented to you, the user who's asking these questions, in a way that feels genuine, that feels caring, that feels like this is not just, oh yeah, here's the information you need for the problem, go on and enjoy your day. Because we need to understand that people that may be asking questions, they may be in distress, they may be in a very tough spot, and they really want help, and this is their last resort in terms of getting help. And we just wanted to make sure that the data that we're actually feeding into these models, where it goes and looks at our database to get the relevant question, or sorry, the relevant answer to the question, it's also the question is structured in such a way by human being at a time that the caring element comes through. And then the Gen AI model is then able to sort of pick up on those points in the tone and how the question is being answered, and then bring that across, obviously, to be more specific to the question that's being answered by the human. So that human element comes through. It is being brought through by curating the data with humans and bringing that element through to the bot as you actually interact with my AI lawyer. So it's human magic in the background and being effectively delivered by Gen AI through my AI lawyer.
So I think, and then I'm going to go to the curation and come to the actual. But I think just to summarize, so there's a portion of grounding we're doing which says, when you're asking a question, we're going to try to categorize and understand the depth of the question. Is it a labor-related question? If it is, we're going to say, we deeply understand that this kind of question is probably quite hard to deal with. And so we layer in an emotional thread in how we're going to respond. And that's the first part of the question. And then Shlengs, I'll talk to you about the second part, which is, okay, now we've told you how hard it is and we feel so bad and we do understand that we are your partner in this process. But now the person's asked the question and, the question, these questions can be quite they can be, you can just look at a couple of these questions, you can just see how hard life is for so many people. So we're curating content here, and our partners at Legal and Tax are adding to the universe where they're taking legislation. Maybe just break out for us. How do we look at an act? How do we look at collateral, get that ready, and then what are we doing to bring it in?
I think firstly, maybe on a technical perspective, we do look at the data that comes in, so the kind of questions that come in, and then I think that sort of gives us insight onto the different types of legislation that we put into my AI lawyers. That would be your labor disputes. So we're putting in the Labor Relations Act, your Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and then we're structuring the answers around those particular legislation, right? Even just with family law, your Children's Act is embedded in my AI lawyer. And also just I want to touch on the functioning of society, right? This enables the access to justice that we're trying to use AI for, right? We're protecting people's rights. So when you know your rights, you know how to action. This gives you the sort of confidence to go about dealing with a particular problem. Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we've always felt, and I think you've said it so nicely, is that we've always said it's digital when you want it and human when you need it. It's kind of driven all of us here at Legal Intro. I think we all feel very proud that we are contributing in the way that we are to make this collateral available to the man in the street. And so when you talk about the Labor Relations Act or Basic Conditions of Employment, we're actually like looking at that data, we're taking out the pieces we want, we're wrapping that up, and we're making that available to the bot, to my LOA, to Robin, who, when you ask a question, she goes to this curated part of the content, and she then gets that thread. So she goes. So the first part she goes is, as Wanda said, she wraps up and she identifies how she wants to respond, and then the second part is, okay, well let's actually get you the actual factual answer. And then the third part is, like, okay, now this is the human in the loop part. We always put this on. It's the human in the loop part saying that notwithstanding our answer, we do think you need to fact check us with a human in the loop. And so there's an option to talk to a human lawyer. And so that's when we open up the.
I think I like how it sort of tells you what the law says, and then it gives you the possible next step. So if maybe you need to go to the CCMA, then it's going to suggest maybe heading up to the CCMA and taking those next steps. Maybe if you're unfairly dismissed, finding yourself in situations like that. So it does become a bit practical in that sense as well. Yeah.
We're really thrilled with what my AI has been able to do. I mean, it's helped us as a business like really contribute to South Africa in terms of enablement of a platform called AI for Good. So maybe you guys want to talk about AI for Good, fairness, commitment to transparency, the move there.
Yeah, certainly. I can start off with when it comes to AI for Good, and the slide shows there. It's all about being responsible. So with great power comes great responsibility, right? And AI is no exception. And when, as a company, as Legal Interact, we're committed to making sure that we are using AI responsibly within our products and anything that we pretty much put out there. We want to make sure that it's safe, it's secure, and we're pretty much transparent about where AI is involved in our process, because we think that's very important, right? That the person who's interacting with our product or any of our services or any of our clients that are using these products or services, they need to clearly understand, even if they don't see it up front, if they ask a question, they want to understand how is AI being involved, how is it secured, what is it actually doing with my data. We want to be very open and transparent about the processes and how that's happening. This way, someone who's using the product or service, they have that sort of ease to understand that we are being responsible and we are being ethical about how we go about using AI. And I think it's very important part to actually making AI a bit more comfortable, because there is a lot of, fear around AI, and a lot of it comes maybe from misinformation. A lot of it comes from actually truly, grounded, real concerns that come from what its capabilities are and how it's going to change the way we do things. And I think we want to play a part where we are truly driving AI for good and making sure that people are aware that yes, they are risks, they are concerns, but there's a lot of good that can come from it, and we shouldn't disregard that.
I think that on the more legal side, right, we need to be ethical about the use of AI. We need to be transparent in how we're using AI as well. I think also just touching on the confidentiality aspects of contract management, right? A lot of contracts do have confidentiality clauses. And maybe Brad can sort of touch on the confidentiality aspects and how we are compliant in compliant in confidential requirements and legislation, things like your Copy Act, your Electronic Communications and Transactions Act as well.
Perfect. So I think the key point there is everything's running on Microsoft Azure. You know, we run Azure OpenAI. Everything is encrypted at rest. There's a whole process we've gone through just in terms of being ISO compliant, and we're really excited about that. And then you sit behind, you know, the Microsoft Shield. So, you know, Microsoft have come forward and said that you're protected. If you're a good actor, you're protected, and so we fully subscribe to that. I see we are running out of time. I think it's been incredibly exciting. I know we've got a few more things. We want to try and do. And I think just in terms of the questions, I mean, Tawanda, you posted something the other day and you said Africa is a landscape and our job is to
Africa is a blank canvas and we are the artists 100%. Yeah, and I think a lot of the times when we look at the African continent, we're always seeing it being framed in this problems. It's got nothing but problems. And I was like, problems are opportunities for solutions. And I think AI is one of the key components of finding solutions for a lot of the problems that we face in the continent.
So we're optimists here, and we think this is really exciting, and I think it's a great way. Let's see if we can get into some of those questions, and if we can deal with them. I don't know how much time we do have, but if we can deal with a couple of questions.
Yeah, I think we can embark on maybe answering them on LinkedIn. So maybe watch out for our LinkedIn, and we will answer all of your questions.
On that note, then, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.